Do you think the Department of Education will actually be dissolved? My sister and fiance are, hopefully two separate people, are special education teachers, plural, two separate people, in a low-income district, and there will be no funding for special education left if the Department of Education disappears. I think they will 100% dissolve or at least cripple the Department of Education, and if I were your fiance and sister, separate people, I would be updating their CVs. It's going to be really bad. That's so horrible. Yeah. It's grim, but I'm not being like pessimistic or anything. It just seems like that's going to happen. Remember, the only reason we have public education is also because of the capital class. I should really adopt like Bernie style populism on this and say like the owning class or something, to sort of dispense with the anachronistic terminology and use stuff that people relate to more nowadays. Capital class is a little bit hoity-toity. Ruling class is ambiguous, though. Everyone says ruling class. Fascists think the ruling class is like trans people with blue hair. He says the 1%. Yeah, but that's also a little too inaccurate for my tastes. The owning class? Yeah, the owner class. Probably something like that. I don't know. Keep in mind that public education only exists because the owning class wants it to, right? The reason education was guaranteed to people was because we moved into an economy where literacy was basically necessary. The whole idea behind the state paying for education is that if everyone knows how to read, you don't have to engage in special training to get bookkeepers. And that used to be what businesses had to do. If you wanted bookkeepers, people to write ledgers, just anyone managing like administrative or bureaucratic work, in many cases, you would have to teach them how to read. And the idea that peasants couldn't read, by the way, is not entirely true. They were functionally literate to the extent they needed to be, which usually meant reading maps, road signs, being able to write down like basic ledgers, missives, simple messages, but they weren't properly literate. Proper literacy is necessary for a bunch of jobs adjacent to the aristocracy or in like big business. And the idea of like we need more people to be broadly educated came about during the latter era of mercantilism, where you have these increasingly complex bureaucracies being developed to manage, say, for example, like the extraction of wealth from India. How do you do something like that without having, like, you don't just need like 10 guys who can read. You don't just need 100 guys who can read. You don't just need 1,000 guys who can read. You need tens of thousands of people who can read at a level that they can precisely input and relay and record instructions, data, what have you, with basically no fault. And for that, you need public education. And that's like sort of the industrial reason for public education's existence. Of course, there's also the philosophical belief that people should learn things because knowledge, it frees our mind and helps with like democratic decision making. But it's not why, really. Yeah, who cares about that, wokey? If you were to guess what proportion of the capital class need people with advanced degrees to run their businesses, I don't know if that's an answerable question. I mean, run their businesses? At what level? Do you need to be literate to be a barista? And if you don't, why should they let you read? Knowledge and education is the one aspect that naturally decreases economic inequality that economists largely agree on. Yeah, so a lack of knowledge and a lack of education will increase wealth inequality, which is Starbucks baristas need to read the recipe cards they get. Yeah, that ain't that much. Look, the development, the death of the American manufacturing industry basically it dealt like so every once in a while you have these bubbles which prove the need for a given level of general education. The belief that we needed lots of very well-educated people probably reached its peak in the 90s and early aughts, which is when a lot of you were growing up hearing that all you need to do is go to school for engineering or computer science and you are guaranteed to have a six-figure income forever. Many of you now know that was a lie, of course. That's not how the economy works, for one. But why was that lie told? That lie was told because for the first time, there was a very, very, very strong economic boom that happened very quickly, where our ability to engage with the boom was basically entirely down to people having like computer science degrees. Like that, people needed a high level of education at every level there. Normally, like people with high levels of education, they do like high-end service work, like being a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher, or they work in like R&D jobs, scientists, laboratory. Like their usefulness is significant, but usually like sectorally limited. But then the dot-com boom, you have like, wait, hold on a second. The internet is a thing and you need to know how computers work to use it. And also it's going to revolutionize everything. Holy shit. We better make sure every kid growing up gets a CS degree, because if they don't get one, they're going to be left behind. They're going to be working at McDonald's or whatever. Now what happened? Whoa, it turns out that was a bubble. Most people who work in computer science like have trouble getting a job befitting of their skill set. And everyone has a bunch of college debt. Yeah, CS degrees work at McDonald's now. Exactly. It's all coming back around. That is the one economic position, the one position within our economy that there will always be a demand for. You know, we used to need more farmers, always more farmers. Not anymore. What do we need now? Well, service workers. Now, again, guys, do you need a college degree to be a service worker? And if you don't, why the hell would the powers that be wipe away your student debt? Why would they pay for college? Why would they let you have that? For free? Those tax dollars could be going to the Pentagon. Those tax dollars could be going to any one of a number of industry subsidies. There's a lot of people who could benefit. It could go to Israel, you know? Going to Israel and going to the Pentagon are functionally the same thing in a lot of ways. But yes, it could go to either. Anyway, I'm not trying to be overly cynical. It's just this, I think that like falling back into this sort of, paleo-Marxist perspective explains quite a bit. It gives you a pretty clean-cut understanding of what is otherwise a lot of irrationality on the top end. Remember, this rhetoric can play into conservative propaganda, their belief that college is a waste of time. It's not really conservative propaganda. I mean, it's increasingly become a waste of time, yeah. It really depends on what you're good at, what your job prospects are, but like, it's a huge gamble, man. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in debt, and a lot of these people end up working the same job as everyone else. On average, people who get a college degree have a higher income, median or mean, but there's complexities buried within that statistical reality, Just because on average there's a higher income doesn't mean that average might not be weighted heavily by a tail to the right. Higher income people, maybe the average person who gets a college degree makes basically the same as people who just graduated high school, but they, every once in a while you get someone making like $500,000 in a tech job. More likely, I would say, oftentimes people with college degrees make more money afterwards due to factors that led to them going to the college, not the college themselves. Or in other words, people are more likely to go to university if they grew up in a household where they have money and time and they go to they're born into enough privilege that university is a realistic or almost necessary prospect for them. And for that reason, they carry on into the real world with that inertia, which they might have even without college. I still recommend people get a degree if it corresponds to their life interests, but yeah, it's definitely not a fair shake. It sucks, Lisa Bean, yeah. Cybersecurity is a very important skill right now. Countries will be looking for it. Yeah, but 330 million people in this country. I mean, they'll need that, sure. But it's not going to be the justification for like a massive college boom. How does the bourgeois position on climate change make sense? Wouldn't they want to maintain environmental and social stability to maintain power? Do you remember what the American capital class did during the Cold War? We engaged in like a million behaviors as a society, as a country, as a civilization that brought us closer and closer to risking nuclear Armageddon. A lot of it was being done in the service of capital interests. What do we do? Kenneth, it's the Cold War. You'll have to Google it. Well, I can look that up. Ah, you said it before All right. Instability is profitable, Vosh, not the other way around. Stability is profitable for like the common man. Yeah, instability allows for further capital consolidation, mix-ups in the market, sudden need for a new thing, fear, panic. They allow for rapid developments in the market, for things to crash, to build back up, for wealth to be concentrated in the hands of a smaller and smaller number of people. Chat, you know, a lot of people made money off 2008, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, you guys didn't do well. Your families didn't do well with 2008. But yeah, quite a few people did. Well, maybe not quite a few, but, you know, some very powerful people did. It's pretty grim. Though, I think the people should take some solace in this knowledge because it allows you a degree of historical perspective. You know, it's always been like this, right? It was like this during Marx's time. It was like this during World War I and World War II. It was like this throughout the Cold War. It was like this immediately after the Cold War. And it is like this today. Not a super long time in a historical perspective, you know, looking at the totality of human history. Well, can they please stop? God willing. Nothing new ever happens. Well, that's not true. Capitalism didn't, you know, we weren't born with capitalism like at the beginning of human existence. Things do change. In a material sense, things change. Material forces altered the dominant mode of economic production. It's not the only natural system. But it's the end of history, Vosh. We have to retire that joke because even Fukuyama he's literally said, like, it's like essentially the end of neoliberalism.